Hey, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Reality Bites with Dr. Kelly. I'm Dr. Kelly. I'm not sure if this is working yet. It says live video is starting. There we go. Oh, good morning. Welcome to Reality Bites with Dr. Kelly. Today, we're going to be having some fun. Fun for me. I want to teach you some stuff. So this is Reality Bites, a podcast typically supporting male survivors of sexual abuse. Today, we're not going to be talking about anything graphic at all. We're going nowhere near that. I want to be a little bit cheeky today. Today, I'm talking about things that are going to support you in your marriage, help you communicate better with your wife. So today's topic is how to stop your wife from nagging. And I'm referring to women as the naggers because usually we're the ones that are being accused of this. But there's a reason. Guys, you're going to need to know this, what I have to say. Gals, you're going to like what I have to say. Women, I encourage you, share this podcast with your spouse. It's going to help you feel heard in the long run. Couples, this is really important that you learn to do this well because not doing this is one of the things that leads to infidelity in marriages. Husbands often cheat because they say all their wives do is nag and they don't give them enough sex, that kind of stuff. They complain about it feels like I can't do anything right. Women cheat because they feel a lack of emotional intimacy. So men want more sex, women want more emotional intimacy, and they don't want sexual intimacy because they don't feel heard, both of which are very valid complaints. So today I want to do what I would do in therapy. I want to help men and women overcome this because I am for your marriage. Mark 10:9 says, "Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." So stay tuned. I kind of learned about this when I was doing my PhD. I was a teacher's assistant, and I was teaching basic counseling skills to undergraduate students. And I asked a student to be brave and do a live demo with me. And it was on how to counsel. And the issue that he had, he said, "Oh, he put me on the spot really good here." He said, "My girlfriend, she just goes on and on and on. We have a lot of fun. I love her. I'd marry her, except whenever we have an issue, she just won't shut up." And we talked for a while. I had to figure out what was going on. And eventually I asked him the question, "Well, how do you handle this when this happens?" And he said, "Oh, I just ignore her." And I was like, bingo, there's your problem. As a woman, she needs to know that you have heard her. So if you can learn to do this, it helps her feel close. It helps her feel heard. She goes on and on and on. She doesn't stop talking because she needs to know that you have heard what she's saying. Now, guys, this is not agreeing with what she's saying. It's not being the solution to what she's uh, discussing. It's just letting her know that you have heard her. No one wants to feel ignored. So please, I know this might be tough to listen to, but bear with me. If you're a pastor or another counselor, this is a skill that you're going to obviously want to be able to use with your own clients. It's not something that most men like to talk about, but I promise it's going to help. This is not me nagging, it's me helping. So you can let her know that you have heard her, aka stop the nagging, by giving her back a piece of what she's talking about. Give her back a piece of the emotional content and a piece of the actual content, right? So you identify a piece of the content and a piece of her emotions. We do this by capturing like the high point of what she's saying. Maybe like just let her know you've got the basic content of the subject that she's talking about and a basic piece of the emotion. This is basic counseling skills. It's why people come to me. So you're going to refer back to her the overall meaning of what she said and the feelings that she's experiencing. This is going to help her feel heard. It's going to help her organize her thoughts and feelings. It's going to help draw attention to the impact of the situation that it's having on her. It's going to help her identify her own values, and it's also going to maybe encourage her, empower her to find a solution, right? So we do this by responding back with a small piece of the content, a small piece of the emotion. It helps her feel heard. It helps her stop talking about it, right? But you don't want to be too obvious. You don't want to just parrot back to her exactly what she said. You might need to switch it up. This is literally what I'm doing in session all the time. I'll give you an example. So, for example, if your wife comes home and says, "I'm so sick of doing data entry. I feel like if I have to sit at that stupid computer and just enter people's names and addresses again, my head's gonna pop off. I'm gonna implode. I'm not sure why Julie gets to do all the exciting jobs, that kind of stuff. I have to do the mundane tasks." Your response could be something like, sounds like you're pretty bored with what your boss has you doing. Keep it about her. Try not to share your experiences of being bored at work. At this point, it would be too soon. You could share that kind of stuff later. But when she's at a high peak of emotion, when she's venting like that, when she's like a lot of women just going on and on and on, you know, sometimes maybe another option would be just summarize what she said. Keep it brief. You could say something like, sounds like you're at the end of your rope with all of this. You do this to let her know that you're listening, let her know that you've heard. And I know you might not want to listen, but obviously you want to get back to that state of peace and harmony in your relationship. And she comes home highly emotive. She needs to vent for a few minutes. She doesn't necessarily need you to solve her problems. She just needs you to listen and let her know that you've heard her. This is literally what I'm doing in session. It helps people get over what they've been through. So you're identifying a piece of the content and a piece of the emotion. Guys, strong emotion typically lasts only about 90 seconds. So for 2 minutes of just listening, you can help her reach that peak in her emotional responsiveness and kind of dissipate. So again, she's not expecting you to find a solution. Typically, she just needs you to listen. Listening is the solution. She doesn't want to go on and on. She's getting frustrated repeating herself too. She just needs to know that you hear her. So she feels heard when you respond with a bit of the emotion and a bit of the content. It helps her feel understood, it helps her feel heard, and it builds your trust and intimacy. Um, if she's going on and on and on, you could ask her a clarifying question. You could say, honey, are you just venting? Or do you want me to help you find a solution? Are you wanting to leave your job? This can help to clarify also for your sake, right? Like if you're going to get stressed out about the idea that my wife is going to quit her job, you know, there's financial implications for that. That might be stressful for you, and then it's all downhill. You're panicking thinking your wife's going to quit her job tomorrow. She may just need to vent, or she may need to identify this idea of asserting herself, asking for asking for less mundane jobs. I don't know, just you may challenge her to take action, to assert herself. Maybe she might even identify some unhealthy behaviors in her health. You could just ask her, see, do you want to sit down and set some goals for yourself, right? Help her to make a plan, perhaps. If she does want help, sit down, invite her to, what would you rather be doing? Pray about it. Try to establish like manageable, reasonable goals to work towards, small, attainable steps. Proverbs 18:16 says the gift makes a way. So if she has a talent, the gift will make a way, right? So pray about this. Put this demand on God. Lord, you say your word says the gift makes a way. So meditate on this. Put this demand on God and then watch for open doors. If you make it this far and you're kind of getting stuck again, as I often do, you get that kind of deer in the headlights response, even in therapy. What am I going to do here? I don't know where to go here. Circle back. Do the same thing over again. Or just start back with this, giving her a piece of what she said and a piece of the emotion. You don't have to solve her problems. These are literally the skills that I was teaching in basic introductory counseling skills. Another big thing that we need to master in relationships is how we respond to what the Gottmans refer to as bids for attention or bids for connection. This is another really important thing that couples often get wrong. So Julie and John Gottman are psychologists that live in Seattle, Washington. They're relationship experts that the psychologists typically refer to. So John Gottman was on his third marriage, and he thought, well, this doesn't look very good as a psychologist. I better figure this out. So he started up what they call a love lab in Seattle, and they would invite couples to come in and they studied them. They did this for 20 years, and they identified what makes couples last and what makes couples break up. And what it came down to was how they fight. So again, back to this idea of also how they handle each other's bids for attention and bids to connect. So most couples do this hundreds of times per day. They can be big things, for example, or little things. For example, I'll give you an idea here of what I'm talking about. A spouse might say, might be listening to their voicemail or something, and all of a sudden they gasp. That's a bid for your attention. That's a bid for you to respond. And at this point, you have a couple options. You can turn towards them. You can ask them, "What's wrong? What was the voicemail about?" or you can ignore it, right? And that's not a good response. Maybe you're making dinner and your spouse says to you, "How was your day?" Even if you don't want to talk about it, you need to look up, you need to turn towards her and say, give her at least a little bit of non generic content. Even if you say more of the same or "I'm really glad to be home," it's better than ignoring her, right? So this is done so that your spouse knows that you see them and that you value them. It's not necessarily that they really want to know about your whole day, but they want to make a connection with you. So try to look at it from that point. Bids are often sometimes really subtle, because sometimes if there is hostility in the relationship, it can be difficult to be vulnerable and to ask for what you need. It might even just be something like, when you're sitting down having dinner and your spouse says to you, "Hey, can you pass the salt?" Right? How you respond to that is really important. At that point, you got the option of either turning towards them, like, grab the salt, turn towards them, and give it to them, make eye contact, that kind of stuff. Maybe even make a comment about, the food being good enough without it, or the food being bland and needing a little bit of salt. Anything to connect, right? The other way to respond would be to just ignore her and reject. Like, maybe you might just pass the salt, but you don't turn towards her, you don't make eye contact, you don't acknowledge her at all, and that's going to make her feel rejected. It's going to cause her anxiety to flare, right? So yeah, healthy responses typically involve making eye contact, turning your body towards her, and for women, this is going to increase her trust. It's going to increase her sense of an emotional connection. And when a woman feels emotionally connected, this increases her desire for passion, right? And, obviously, this is what men want too. They get their connection through sexual intimacy. So, happy couples make hundreds and hundreds of bids for each other's attention every day. They can be small things. It can be things like, as your partner goes by, you touch their shoulder, you rub up against them, you give them a wink, you make eye contact, you send an emoji text or something. Little things like that, but it's really important how you respond to them. You want to respond by turning towards them in whatever way is helpful or good in that moment. The Gottmans found in their research, they did 20 years of study, they found that when couples break up, it's typically because, this resentment starts when the one partner is, turning away instead of turning towards the other. And typically it's the woman that builds up the resentment. They feel rejected, so then they start to reject back. And this is the kind of stuff I work with in therapy with couples all the time. We got to identify that cycle. How does this start? How does it end? Where can we intervene so that we can get a different outcome? Another situation I hear a lot from police officers who are frustrated. They come home at the end of the day, they're super exhausted, and they've been making decisions, they've been responsible all day, and their partner says something like, "What do you want for dinner?" And I know they're super frustrated. They're like, "I don't care, I just want to eat." But you got to keep in mind, again, this isn't necessarily about making the decision about what you eat so much as a desire to connect. You can even be humorous in those moments. Like, you could say something like, "The usual steak and lobster with the butter on the side," Obviously, you're being funny in those moments. The lesson here is meant like, turn towards your partner in those moments. Turn towards them instead of away from them. Listen for those sighs. Make eye contact. Ask a question. Use humor. Anything to move towards the partner instead of turning away. So it's really important that we be able to look at relationships from this context. Again, understanding the underlying meaning of these sighs, these gestures. They're about making an emotional connection. Validating your partner is super important. Again, we validate by giving our partners, we validate them, we let them know we've heard them by giving them a piece of their content and a piece of the emotion. And yes, this takes effort. And, even if your partner is stating the obvious or something and you get frustrated with them, like maybe they're just, stating what you're doing, just try to keep in mind that they're saying something to make an emotional connection. And like, a helpful way to think about this might be, just be glad that someone wants to connect with you emotionally. I hope this helps. This really is the answer to how you stop away from nagging. If she is going on and on, chances are it's because you are ignoring her. You're turning away from her bid for attention, her bid for connection, her desire to be seen and heard. you're turning away from it instead of turning into it. I promise you, when you turn into it, when you validate her, when you give her a piece of the content, when you give her a piece of the emotion, this is going to help her feel heard. It's going to stop the nagging. It's going to bring you a better sense of peace. And it's way better to put a little bit of effort into this than to live in that sort of state of hostility and rejection and just sort of, neither partner getting their needs met. So I hope this helps. Guys, I encourage you, listen to this again. If it came at you a little too fast, women, share this with your men. Obviously, you want to be heard. If you felt like this hits home with you, you just need your guys to, guys often, people don't change because they don't know how to change. So when we teach them how to change, they can change. So guys, I'm telling you how to help your wives feel heard. Give her a piece of the content and a piece of the emotion. So I do this all the time in therapy. No matter what my client is saying, I try to stay behind them, and I don't want to parrot back. I don't want to give the exact words back. I'm going to change it up a little bit. But I am always giving them a piece of the content or a piece of the emotion. Sometimes I'll ask a clarifying question just so that they know that I'm listening. They need to know that you're tracking with them. So super important. Whatever it takes to just let your wife know that you're listening, this is what is going to stop her from nagging. So, God bless. I hope this helped. Take care. Uh, Happy marriage. Happy wife, happy life, right? Take care. Bye.